comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, the week before Christmas 2015. And I dug deep, real deep in my archives to come up with an interview that I did with the late Charlie Fox, who is best known for managing the San Francisco Giants in 1971 when they won the Western Division Championship. They lost to Pittsburgh. It was a great year, and I did an interview with Charlie back in, like I say, about 1995. It was for a show, a cable show I was doing out of Cal State Hayward. And there was a television show, Charlie and a bunch of other greats from the 50s. Hank Sauer came in to do interviews for this little series I had about the golden age of baseball in the 50s. I had Hank Sauer, Charlie Silvera, Joe DeMaestri, a bunch of people, Leonard Cobbett, very esteemed Hall of Fame sports writer, and others. And so I'm going to give you the interview I did with Charlie way back then, and it stands up today. He reminisces about his career in baseball. He spent like 50 years in baseball as a player, major league player in the 40s. With the pre-war, with the New York Giants, he came up as literally a New York native. Came up, he was like 20 years old, 1920. He'll tell you about it in the interview. Went to war, came back, worked for the Giants. He was a scout, minor league manager, one of the most interesting guys on the face of the earth. And God rest his soul, Mr. Charlie Fox. So let me see if I can't pull this up and see what happens. I wonder if I push the button, conference calling started. Let me try this. Okay. I'm honored to have 50-year Major League veteran Charlie Fox. Nice to see you, Charlie.
Nice to see you.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Charlie is a native New Yorker, and we're talking off camera. In 1942, Charlie came up with the New York Giants. A native New Yorker coming up with the Giants. Tell me a little bit about what that was like.
Oh, God, it was a wonderful experience. At the time, you know, we had played with a bunch of young kids in New York that we were only supposed to pick from on a Legion team called Eddie Grant. Now, Eddie Grant was a ball player killed in the First World War. That was a giant ball player. And we were supposed to, Bill Terry was supposed to pick from one borough of the five and two high schools. Well, Bill happened to lose count somewhere along the line. He picked from every borough in every high school. We had players. We had some great players there that went on. Larry Miggin, and just a bunch of Buddy Kerr, Sitko, and all these kids played.
What high school did you go to in New York?
First I went to St. Agnes High School. There was no sports there, so I ended up at James Monroe High School.
Oh.
And Greenberg had just got out maybe three years or so before me. And it was wonderful that when they put me in the Hall of Fame with Hank Greenberg, I said, boy, I'm in there with the big hitters.
All right. You come up in 42, you're 20 years old. You catch, here, first three pitchers you catch.
Well, Voiseau was his first ball game. And I caught him. And then the following day, I caught Hal Schumacher. We shut out Philly. And Voiseau pitched about Philly, and I caught Carl Hubbell.
Carl Hubbell.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
I used to catch Carl Hubbell all the time. In fact, I learned years later that the reason I was brought up is Danning and Mancuso were hurt at the time, and they were spelling one another, and they were.
That's pretty old.
Yeah, they had some age on them. And Hank was a dear friend of mine. Still is. I see him every once in a while. But recently I've missed him. He leaves. He goes with his daughter that has his grandchildren. So he follows them wherever they move to.
Oh,
he
right.
follows them. And I was brought up, I think, because of the fact that I had been there for 4 years learning how to play big league baseball. I didn't know how to play minor league ball, actually. Everything I learned was in the big leagues.
Right.
Around with the Eddie Grant post.
Mel Ott was your...
Mel Ott and Carl Hubbell. I used to love Hub. He would tell you things that, other people they haven't learned to this day. And Ottie the same way. And we had a great rapport. I mean, as far as me as a young person with them, they're established superstars. So when I was sent out, Bill Terry made the rounds, and as you know, there weren't many leagues at that time because of the war.
Right.
And I was at Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee in the Appalachian League. And Bill Terry said he went to Jersey City and Fort Smith, Arkansas, and then to Bristol. That was the 3 teams they had. At Jersey City, they had Hugh Poland. I don't know if you remember the name, but he was a catcher. And then Jimmy Glad was an Indian boy that was at Fort Smith, Arkansas. And neither one of them, both of them could hit probably much better than I do. I never looked up their record, but I could catch better than they could, and I could throw better than they could. But I learned later in life, and Hubbell told me, he says, they asked Bill, what were you looking at? He says, he says, I'm looking for a catcher to spell these 2 guys. He said, the best one we got is that kid we used to have here playing Legion ball, the Irish kid.
Right.
Hubbell says, he can catch me with his eyes closed, bring him up. And that's how I got to big leagues.
Big leagues, 20 years old. And incidentally, Charlie hit .429 in his brief big league career, which wasn't too bad. Yeah. And then along comes the war.
Well, the war was on at the time, and I was just waiting to go in. I had enlisted, and they said they'd hold me, just let me get a year in baseball, and then you go in. But I enlisted in the United States Navy.
Okay, and got out after the war.
Out of the war,
in the minors.
46, went to spring training with the Giants, and I was entirely out of shape. I hadn't touched the ball in three and a half years, and they optioned me to Manchester, New Hampshire. In the middle of the year, Hal Gruber, dear friend of mine, still lives in Florida, was my manager. He was my first manager at Bristol, and now he was managing Manchester. He optioned me up there with him. And Sal Evers was the other catcher.
Sal Evers,
yes.
Caught with
and
Giants?
He had sort of a nervous breakdown, a bleeding ulcer or something, and they asked me to take over while he was in the hospital. Well, needless to say, my fiery attitude at that time, I probably should have been still convalescent someplace, I guess. Yeah. And we went from about 7th to 2nd quick. We finished 3rd at the end of the year. And then Hubbell and Jack Schwartz, who is still alive across the bay, and just mind league director, the fantastic man, the greatest mind I've ever. He'd remember your name and all the little juniors and middle names and everything else he knew. And he said that, Charlie, take care of yourself because you're going to be a good manager. But take it easy. We want you to manage. Would you like to manage again? I said, sure, I'd like to try it. And they sent me back to Bristol. And I managed 1 year at Bristol. And actually, I wasn't fired, but I was relieved of my duties at the end of the year there because I was too hard on the kids. They told Hubbell, he says, he trains them. He has them out there every morning at 10 o'clock in the heat. And he works, and Hubbell says, well, don't he catch the game? And he coaches third base with the gear on. He goes back there. He says he never sits down. And he's working them too hard.
Good enough for him.
It's good enough for me, so I'll move him up. And they moved me to St. Cloud, Minnesota, where I stayed for 8 years. In fact, 1 year I got 8 write-in votes for mayor, and I thought I'd better leave before I got stacked.
Before you become a mayor, for crying out loud. You went into scouting.
Yes, in 56 I did. I went into scouting.
Okay, scouting was so much different at that time. Before the draft.
Marvelous.
It must
marvelous
have been
time.
one. I mean, just really every day is an experience finding kids.
Yeah.
And
I went from 56 to 63 as a scout. The first 3 years I did free agent work, and the next 3 I did big league work. The free agent market at that time was a marvelous situation because you could go in. I've talked to different people in this light. I'd go in and you were a young person that had an 18-year-old boy that I wanted. Mm-hmm. I go and I said, my first expression was, the New York Giants love to have your son. At this time, of course, we were the San Francisco Giants, and I just had to correct myself.
Right.
Like that. Right?
Right. We're all doing that.
Yes, we did that so often.
Still doing that, I might add.
We get into that talk, and I'd probably end up saying, well, I think your son is worth $10,000. And in one instance, I can't say the name because the man is still around, I said to the widow, there's a widow lady that had this boy, and I said, what do you owe in this house? She said, I owe $11,000 in this home. I said, I'll pay that up, and I'll give you $15,000 cash. They signed right away. All right. But it was, you sold yourself. You sold your organization with, the Giant organization had a great name. We took care of the players. We had dormitories for them. In fact, I'm sorry I didn't bring in a book of Sanford, Florida. I had it in the car, and I've seen the rain, and I just ran off without it because it's real old. But we took care of the kids, taught them every day, every morning in spring training. We had classes. Frank Schellenbach had the pitchers, and Adi for a time had the hitters, and Hubbell was always there. So that I did catching. So it was a grooming. It was something that they don't have now, I don't believe. I see it more and more as I get older. That
the instructions.
The niceties of the instructions are not there.
Right. Tell me a little bit about New York City baseball in the 50s. I mean, I think I've said this on the air before. My friend Len and I talked that we thought as kids that the World Series was played in New York every year.
Every year.
I mean, it was just assumed. We were surprised. We were 14 years old. I was surprised.
Well, with the year I was born, 21, from 21 to 24, the Giants won the pennant, and they were in the World Series, my father said. And then 33, 34.
Did you grow up as a Giant fan?
Oh, yes.
So
I was the only Giant fan up in that part of the Bronx. They were all Yankees.
All right.
So needless to say, I got in a few arguments here and there.
Once in a while. And the feverish rooting that went on in New York at that time, you were either a Giant fan, a Dodger fan, or a Yankee fan. There was no in between. You didn't like both teams or care. I mean, you were one or the other.
Where I lived, there was no Dodger fans, I assure you.
None whatsoever. When it was the city, just my imagination, the city changed when the Giants and Dodgers moved.
I believe it had, but it did because of the fact that the people felt offended that they would leave such a great city. And I thought we were crazy when we left because I grew up there and had all my friends there, enjoyed and went to school there. And I was thinking, God, how could we leave New York to go to San Francisco? But once I get out here, I said, oh, God, I can see why we're here. You open up and it's nice. The weather tonight gets a little cool, but over in Candlestick, but I can stand it. When I win, the weather is great. Right. When I lost, it was awful cold tonight.
Right. Never blame the park.
When you win, everything is great. I don't care what the weather was.
Okay. You scouted for the Giants and then became third base coach in early 60s?
From 65 to 69, and I managed Phoenix in 1969. And at the end of the year, there was some inquiries, I guess, about me being a manager with another club, and Horace Tillman said, don't worry, you'll be the next manager.
What was Horace like?
Most wonderful man I ever had. Pleasure of being around. He gave an appearance of standoffishness, as it were, but once you knew him, he was great. He was shy. He was a shy person. He had a few drinks here and there, but
every now and again.
Yeah, not that it bothered me any, and most of the people around it didn't bother him. He was a very kind person. He took care of me. He knew that my father had died when I was overseas, and he called my mother at times. Everything's all right. The boy, have you heard from him? She says, no, and he's missing and something, But needless to say that Horace Stoneman was fine to me. And when I moved to Tacoma in '64, and I was made a third base coach for the Giants, he in turn called me and he said, "I want you to move down here. Come down to San Francisco." Well, I was only there 1 year, and the first thing you know, he said, "I want you in Phoenix." I said, "I can't keep moving." He said, "Well, don't worry, I'm going to pay for it all. I move you down lock, stock, and barrel," which they did, and I ran the instruction lead from '64. Well, I was out there in '62, but I was still in Massillon, Ohio, where I was scouting, and from '62 right on up. When I was managing, I used to go down there. It's about '73. I managed the instruction league.
These were years when the Giants were producing more outfielders than any other team. I mean, they supplied the National League with outfielders. The Alou brothers, Henderson, everybody coming out to play with
Maddox, Matthews, Willie Kirkland when he first came out here. Daddy Wags. I had them all.
Yeah. Tell me about an enigma, Dave Kingman.
Oh, God.
You managed Dave in '71. I think he was a rookie, if I'm not mistaken, at that time. I saw him go from first to third faster than almost anybody I've ever seen play ball. The guy was 6'6", and once he motoring, he was an athlete. He was a pitcher before being signed. Tell me about him.
Dave, to me, a lot of people were disenchanted with Dave, but I love Dave Kingman. One instance I can give you that when he came up in '71, he had an emergency appendectomy. 7 days later, he slides across home plate on his stomach and wins a ball game for me. To me, that was just pure unadulterated guts. Courage. Are you all right? I'm right. Are you all right? Dave, I'm fine, Skip. I'm all right. He was a powerful man, really powerful.
Big guy.
And we all have some idiosyncrasies that bother people. You know that.
Right.
And me, I'm probably my mouth because it's either yes or no, and there's no gray in between.
And me, it's my very being.
No. The thing that I enjoyed about Dave is he never wanted out of the lineup. And the day that I brought him into pitch, he was like a kid with a new toy. "Oh, Skip, I'll get him out." And he did a good job. He threw the ball well. But he was such a good hitter, a fine hitter. And I think that if we would have just had a little more patience with him, at the time we had so many good players. That was the fault of all of it. And Dave, if he'd have stayed in Chicago when he went there, he'd have broke all sorts of records.
Right,
they just had the patience of, he'd get in squabbles about different things, but he was like a big kid.
Right. How about that double play combination that you had?
Spire and Fuentes.
They were both young. I think Spire played his best year at 71.
Horace used to come out and watch them, and he used to go in. He said, "I can't watch that. I got to go in," because they were always practicing throwing over their head like basketball players. So Tito would come running in, the ball bouncing over the pitcher's head, taking it up and go like this, and Spire would catch it by hand and make a double play. Nobody on base. Ball hit up the middle by Johnny Bench. I think Johnny Bench always remembers this play. Tito dives, and he hits the ball like a handball player. Bang! Just like that. And here comes Lanier, catches the ball. Boom, you're out. Here's the right bench. I said, "They just doubled you up, John."
When Fuentes came up, he was the shortstop, and Lanier was the second baseman.
That's right.
What went into whose decision was that?
Well, I had Lanier at Tacoma.
Right.
Sent him to the big leagues. Alvin wanted him at the time, and they brought him up. And he was a good hitter when he left me. He was the fourth hitter in my lineup in AAA, and somebody started making him a right field hitter. He was a pull hitter when I got him, and from that time on, he didn't hit very well. But when I took over the Giants in '70, he was still there. And we finished the year with him. Well, finally, we had Hunt as the second baseman, and I knew we needed a little more speed there, and a little more soft. So I brought up Tito. And nobody. He's a hot dog, Pero caliente. So I says, "I'm going to tell you something. I don't care what kind of hot dog he is. He knows how to play and how to win." I said, "Sometimes, like all managers, you got to manage this way. One day here, one day here." I said, "I like Tito, and I like the kid. I I named Spire, Chris Spire, the starting day shortstop after only 1 year in the minors and a winter league, instruction league. And in spring training, I said to Horace, shortstop is Spire, second base is Whitney. Oh, Charlie, he was fired by the 4th of July. I said, well, you'll have to do it. So, you you stir me up sometimes, and I'm sitting there, and they come in, and the season's about to start, and I said, we'll win the pennant. First day of the season, we'll win the pennant. We did.
You did. 1971. Last time till 86. And as a matter of fact, Roger Craig managed the most games of anybody in San Francisco Giant history. This gentleman managed the second most games of anyone.
I would have liked to stick around to rejuvenate that because Mays was gone. McCovey was gone.
You had Mays just at the end of his greatness.
That's right.
What was he like? Can you tell me something about that hasn't been?
Well, I knew Willie when we first got him. And I was in spring training at Sanford, Florida. And he's a wonderful person. And I kept saying, telling Leo, I said, that's the best ball player we got. Leo says, I got to see him. I've got to see him, so we're bringing him to spring training. He goes through spring training, and they send him to Minneapolis. Well, I'm managing St. Cloud. And at one time, they call me, Charlie, go to spring training. Go to Minneapolis and look at him. I said, I'm managing and playing. He says, we want your opinion of it. I said, well, what am I going to do? He says, whoever's your second string catcher, let him catch and manage the club, and you come on. I said, okay. So I went up. He had a bad night. He hit 2 home runs, stole a base, and hit a double. And
just an average Willie night.
I said, he's the best ball player. He's better than any player you got. And Leo says, what are you talking about? I've got Bobby Thompson. I said, I know Bobby. I said, I played Legion ball with Bobby. I played this first year in Bristol, Virginia. He was a shortstop. We sent him up to the Mountain State League someplace because the manager, Hal Gruber, was playing shortstop. I said, he's better than he is. Oh, Charlie. I said, he is. Well, needless to say, at that time, he was hitting about 540. The next time they asked me to go up, when I got on the phone, and this is after midnight, and they're sitting there waiting, having a conference call. I said, Leo, let me tell you something. He's still the best ball player you got, but he's starting to slip. What's the matter? I said, he's only hitting 450.
Slipping way down.
He was down about 3 days later.
Right. And he comes up and just tears it up.
No.
The first few weeks, wasn't tearing anything
10 days or so, he didn't buy a hit. He couldn't buy a hit. But you knew he was going to hit. He was too strong and powerful man. The thing about Willie, and a lot of people, you make comparisons between Joe DiMaggio and Mays. Who was the greatest? They both were great. But the one little item, the one little thing that Willie had, he could walk on that field when he was young. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Get the high voice. Hey, what a day. Let's play. And children, young boys and girls with this sort of muktu, they loved him. Even the fans loved him.
What amazes me is, number one, the Giants with Willie could move with that player to be able to market. And marketing wasn't even, thought of in those days. But number two, his relationship with the press out here and his overall attitude, he just came off differently out here. He was never appreciated in San Francisco.
Well, I think, the reason I think this happened was the fact that Willie played and broke in the polo grounds. 485 feet away from home plate you could run.
I remember. Oh, do I remember?
Willie, the great catch in the series, isn't it?
Right.
Well, he was used to rolling, and people would say, oh, my God, did you see him go and get that ball? He'd run behind the left fielder, behind the right fielder, because they played up a little bit, and he was in deep, and he'd just cruise. He caught everything. If it was in the air long enough, he caught it. If it stayed in the park, he had it. Well, Leah State now, the first thing we get at the Seal Stadium. It's a little ballpark.
Right.
He has no room to move around. So they couldn't see his greatness other than his hitting and his throwing and his overall ability.
Right.
But the outstanding part of Willie, he could move. Give me a little room to expand. You can put one infielder in place like we did when we played softball. You bring one outfielder behind the infield and let the other two guys roam they could have done it.
I have to go back a little bit. You're 20 again, okay? You come up, it's your first day in the Polo Grounds. You grew up as a Giants fan. Mel Ott is your manager. Did you take a deep breath and go, holy Toledo? I mean,
it was just marvelous. You know, you're in, you try to think back and grasp every moment of it, kind of bring it out and just bring it back in, and you sit around and you say, how was it such a goal? I can't remember all of it. Because all I knew is the second day was, I can remember, really. Catching Lassell was an experience to me because, first off, he couldn't hear.
His first game, too.
Yes, he never went in service because the poor guy couldn't hear. Both years poaching eardrums, he couldn't hear. And Artie was talking to him one day, and I'm laughing like, man. I said, Charlie, what are you laughing at? I'm serious. I see, can't hear what you're saying, Skip.
Skip, right, you're talking.
But anyhow, the second day catching Schumacher. Now, Harold Schumacher had a good sinker and a little slider. Great control.
Nickel curve at that.
Yeah, take a little bit off the ball. And he shuts out old Hanslover, who's coach for the great McGraw at third base. And then he finally come back to the Giants. He was a scout and an instructor for years. Died as an instructor for years. But it was great playing that game because Schumacher knew me, and I put down the slider once, and it didn't react. It didn't do anything. Oh, breaking ball, whichever. We used to call breaking balls, not sliders. Or nickel curve, like you said. I one half a yard. He said, "That's all there is, Charlie." I said, "Well, we'll just forget about that one."
And then the next day, Carl Hubbell.
Well, Hubbell, we talking like this. He says, I was saying, I think they get the kid signed. They hit 2 balls that he had to make good plays at right center. And Hubbell was talking. No. No, they didn't get it. Are you sure? I think they get it. He says, Skip, please. They're not getting the kid signed. We're not using any.
No signs to steal.
No signs.
It's very simple.
That's very simple. I sit down like that. I remember Danny Murtaugh, God bless him. He was on second base. I don't know how he ever got there, but he got to second base. And he's looking to steal signs, and I'm going like this to him. I'm going this way, that way, up. He came in, he said, I don't know what kind of signs you give, but I'll get them.
Someday.
And
he went on to manage at Pittsburgh.
Yep,
against you.
Playoffs, sure.
In the terrible playoffs for the Giants.
It was tough. Our pitchers were just exhausted.
Right. Well, you did more with a limited, let's just say a limited pitching staff. Ron Bryant, Cumberland, you got a lot.
We had a bunch of kids.
Jerry Johnson, a relief pitcher.
Don't forget Don McMahon.
And Don McMahon.
Both of them were in 70 games apiece. That's 140 games out of 154. They were outstanding. In fact, they gave Jerry Johnson a day off. I said, Jerry, I don't want to see him because if I see I might use him. I don't want you at the ballpark tomorrow. Okay, Skip. The next day, I'm out. And as you know, Don McMahon not only was one of my stoppers, but he was the pitching coach. He was the pitching coach. I made him the pitching coach. I remember Horace saying to me, we paid him for both those jobs. I said, yep. That's good. That's all right. Well, he loved Don, too. Anyhow, I'm looking down there, and big Don again. And I got to change. Out I go. I looked up. Jeffrey Johnson. Give me the ball, Skip. He says, Don just sent me in. The pitching coach. I told you not to be here today. I thought McMahon was coming. He said, Jerry puts that in. He puts the next one. Jerry shut him down, and he just finished it up. But they were great people. You know, that ball club
71
didn't have a 300 hitter. You had Willie McCovey on there. The highest batting average was 289, I believe, Bobby Bonds.
Tell me about Bobby Bonds.
And we didn't have a 20-game winner, and they had Marshall.
Tell me about the skill of Bobby Bonds.
If Bobby Bonds hadn't been on a ball club with Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, he would have been just another Mays. He had the charisma with people who 30-30 quite often.
Born to play center field.
Born to play center, and because they had Mays, he didn't play there. If at any one time that I would have said, okay, bring me left fielder was Henderson, and put those two in right center and left center. They didn't get any more hits. In fact, they made more outs maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. There was talk of making Bonds the center fielder and moving Willie over. That never happened.
That ever could. Willie never lost the instinct for the fly ball. He never lost the speed. In other words, the instinct of moving. He was moving when the ball was just starting to break. He knew when he was going to hit it. He knew when. He used to sit in meetings. We'd go over how we're going to pitch him. He says, pitch him any way you want them. I'll tell you what, this is where I'll be playing. He could tell you every hitter that come up. That's where I'll be. And if he was there to hit it, he'd catch that and he'd have to make a difference. He could catch balls behind second base. That the ball is hit right over the pitcher's head, and you look up like that quick, there's Willie. You're out. God, man, that's great.
A manager's dream.
Then all of a sudden you look up, and then it goes boom. Oh my God! There's Willie. I get it. You're right.
You lose coming up. You had Kenny Henderson was very solid, and he and Stone were traded one day for Bradley, and that didn't work out because Bradley had a sore arm.
Bradley didn't have a sore arm. We got him. He got a sore arm with us.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yes, he got a sore arm with us. He had a good arm, a great curve, and we traded him at the meetings in Hawaii. So outstanding, just an outstanding person, but he never materialized. And we're in the process of now we're rebuilding. People are starting. The age is coming.
Right.
And Mays left. And the only reason Mays left, Mays was not really traded. Mays was sent to the Mets because Mrs. Payson wanted him and was going to take care of what she did.
Right, which Charlie just couldn't do.
And Horace couldn't do. He couldn't pay the $165,000. He couldn't pay that much. Charles was gone, and you're talking about he was the National League president.
Right.
We didn't have a general manager there. And he went. He was traded over there, and Matt got in the World Series with him. And then the lights just gave out. That's all there was to it. All of a sudden, they just stopped. But his overall demeanor on a ball club was just fantastic. I could sit in the office, and Tito would come in, or he'd come in. All Bettle would break loose right away. Tito, hey, what are you going to do today, Tito? And he'd come in, flashy dress, with all the rings. Then he'd put all the tape on. When he took the rings off, he'd put tape on. Then he'd go in his locker, and he had some stuff that he put on for good luck, And we used to watch him. He'd say, I can't watch him. I don't want to watch him.
There was not that much dissension on the Giants at that time. The racial thing was overrated.
There was no such thing. As God is my judge on my family, there was no such thing. No such thing. There was no prejudice whatsoever. I always said, I was in the service, seen a little banging around, and a little action. And I never seen one white man, or one black man, or one Irishman, or one Catholic, one Jewish, one Protestant ever say anything about prejudice when they were laying there getting shelled. As all we ever said, dear God, help us. When somebody got hit, they said, Ma. That's all you ever heard. There was no such thing as race whatsoever then. We could go, as you know, growing up in New York, you'd go to the shows, and nobody would make a joke about the Christians or the Irish or the Italian. Nobody took it off. There was no harm. We all laughed.
That's a long story.
It'll go on and on.
This has evolved in terms of human relations, people dealing with each other.
Everybody feels the same.
We're all the same. I mean, when it really comes down to it. Al Gallagher, local Northern California person. Dirty Al, your third baseman.
Yeah, he was at my 50th anniversary over my wife's restaurant, Bertolucci's in South City. And he came up to me and said, Skip, I'm still married. I said, good for you. God bless the woman. I give her a blessing. And he had a tie on. It didn't match, but he had a tie. It was all right. Al was good. He was... I kept telling Al, how do you get so dirty? Everyone out would go out opening day. Everyone has brand new uniforms. And he works out, and never hitting ground balls. He's diving for balls. He gets all dirty. He feels great. And starts out, wait a minute. So we're all going to be introduced. Change, put on the other uniform. I got this one broken in. No, you don't. You changed that uniform.
Your catcher, Dick Dietz.
Dickie Dietz, the Bulldog.
The mule.
Yeah, the mule. The Bulldog was,
I think he gave you 20 home runs.
oh, yeah, he was a good kid. Strong, catch every day. And, you know, people don't realize what a good catcher he was. When you have to catch Gaylord Perry on any given day, and Gaylord had that thing going,
Right.
he was bruised all over. And he never led the league in pass balls. Never led the league in pass balls. Joe Torres did. And that's Dickie Dietz.
Very interesting. He does not have a reputation
he could
for being
throw,
a catcher.
plus the fact he walked 100 times. He walked 100 times. He knew the strike zone. And he was a good hitter. And he died in the rain.
I think he's managing now in
San Jose. Yeah,
right.
Yes, and he has
Jimmy Davenport.
Jimmy Davenport as the infielder.
Yeah.
So.
What a fielder Jimmy Davenport was. Talk about Cox and Boyer and Robinson. I think Jimmy Davenport was right up there.
Well, there again, you're playing with a bunch of superstars on one club, and they don't recognize you. They don't recognize the day in and day out splendor of your work.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd catch everything ahead to him. If the year that they won in '60, it was at 62-2. He and Pagan drove in between them about 125, 130 runs, which I'm unheard of. With the seventh and eighth hitter.
Pagan went on to have a tremendous career with the Pirates.
Yeah. Good player.
Very underrated player. Yeah. Juan Marichal.
Another King Kong.
How many pitches did this guy had? 6 pitches and 6 different deliveries.
The only thing he wouldn't throw is a knuckleball. I think he could have done that if he
probably
wanted to.
could have.
Well, he had a great high kick. And when you look at it, that's why you say, I think audience still listens to me. He says, don't look at the way they go about their work as far as mechanics are concerned. Because everyone will be different. Same thing with the hitter. He says, if he can hit standing on his head and get the job done, let him stand on his head.
Whatever his batting stance was.
McGraw wouldn't let them send out Artie because Artie would pick up his leg like this. He says, some minor league manager get him. Well, you can't do that. You got to keep your foot on the ground and swing. So that's where he got it from. His foot would get up there sometimes and hesitate. All of a sudden, bang. He could hit. I mean, he could hit. So when you get people like Juan Marichal with that big kick and way back, you say, well, how can you see home plate up like this? Bam. Everything is a strike. Everything is a strike.
I think if it weren't for Koufax in his era and maybe Gibson overshadowing him, Marichal would have gotten a lot more attention and a lot more respect. Not that he did, but
he got come in. Then he's in the hall.
You know, right.
He was one of the top pitchers in the league. There was just 2, 3 really. Then you named them.
Right. And Drysdale was not far behind.
Drysdale was right there with them, right behind.
Right. Who's not in the Hall of Fame and should be?
Oh goodness, that's something you can beat to death. You know.
I was talking to Leonard Coppett about Dick Bartell, who's local.
Yeah, Dick was my first roommate.
When you came out.
Yeah, sure. Roddy Dick, he was great. I know I got a base hit, one of my base hits, and they moved me to second. It was 2 out. And Dick hits a line drive to left field. And they just brought a young fellow up the name at this moment against me, and I'm trying to score, and they throw me out. And Dick said, "Get the lard out, will you, Charlie?"
Even at 20.
Yeah,
you ran well for
a catcher, but I mean, it was a bullet. I mean, one hot bullet had it big, and I was out. I mean, when I touched third base, the catcher was Bobby Bragan. It was the first game he was catching, by the way. There was a shortstop making the catcher, and Bobby said, "Charlie, you're out when he touched third."
Bobby Bragan was responsible for Maury Wills becoming a switch hitter.
We turned around and we decided that Hank Sauer and myself and Gene Thompson had to be instruction assistants. We got the. Why don't we try this switch hitter? I've been thinking about it. That's a good idea. Let's try it. And he played that year in the instruction league, went down and played a little winter ball, and he came back. He was pretty good left-handed hitter.
Not too bad.
Did a home run in the playoffs.
How has scouting changed from the time that free agent? Everyone was a free agent. Now that the draft is there, primarily different. Now, you still are a consultant with several major league clubs.
Yeah, I talk to them, and but the thing that bothers me is the fact that you're drafting the player. You say, you might let the family know what my organization, as I would do, and I don't know if they do this, as a youngster in high school or second year of college, these two of these guys, I mean, the senior year, I'm interested in the ball player. We're going to draft him. Or if he's in high school and graduating, we will draft him. Are you going to college, or are you going to signability, scholarship, signability? Well, yes, I'm thinking of it. Well, the next word I would say to the father, I don't know what kind of scholarship it is, but I'll pay for his college. We go in the off season, and we'll pay for it. As long as he continues to go to school in the off season, we'll pay for it. Even if we release him, we'll pay for it.
I was watching my beloved Mets the other day, and Ralph Kiner was on, and Ralph Kiner says, there's a scouting philosophy by my old friend Charlie Fox, who says he would never sign a player until he saw him on a dance floor. Do you remember that?
I used to tease him about his feelings that the first thing they had no limit, You could see Tito. You never see Tito dance. God,
yeah.
Just good. And Cepeda, great dance. Good
Cha-cha.
Cha-cha, yeah. That's where he got it from.
All right.
Put him cha-cha, we put him out and play first base that way. I moved him from third to first, thinking I was going to get Jimmy Davenport. When I moved him over that night, I went in, Hubbell says, Davenport said, I'll take it. Said, wait a minute, Charlie, you got a third baseman. I said, no, I just moved him to first. He said, I'm sorry, he's going over here.
Minor league.
I'd have both of them.
Different minor league. You had them
Class
together.
C, too. Yeah, I'd have both of them together.
You didn't manage Springfield in the office of those. There was a player that I watched pitch a no-hitter at Springfield, Al Stanek.
Al Stanek, left-handed pitcher.
Left-handed pitcher.
I had Al. Oh, God, where did I have him? I had him at St. Cloud, Minnesota, when he went to Springfield.
Oh, right. So that must have been very early 60s.
Oh, no. It couldn't have been, because I was still, the last year
late 50s, I guess.
56.
Okay, late 58, 59 then.
Yeah.
We're going back a long time, Charles.
Oh, well, numbers. My dad was a little perturbed over the people that knew the calendar. He said, I don't respect that 365 days, son. He said, I don't believe in that being a birthday. We'll have no more birthdays in this house. That's okay, Master.
You went on from the Giants, managed Montreal for a while?
Well, I went over there with John McHale in 76. The Giants never approached me after my contract was up in 75. Never called me, nothing. So I said, well, I guess maybe they want me. And I went to spring training and walked in, and John McHale seen me. He said, Charlie, I hear you are not at the Giants. You've got a job. You're looking for it. I said, I am. He said, you'd be my assistant. I said, okay, fine. You'd be my troubleshooter. I'll send you a different place.
The players coming up in that Montreal Expo organization at the time, Carter, Dawson, Ellis Valentine, Cromartie. What talent coming up. Missy, I mean, the fact that they didn't win really surprises me.
It was a terrible surprise that we didn't win. When I went in there, and I was just going around, Carl Hubbell at that time was the manager. And about 2 months into the season, he called me. Mr. McHale called me. He says, come on to Montreal, but register as Monsieur Renard, which means Fox in French. And I registered at the hotel. And the guy looked at me. He knew who I was. I said, okay. So I stayed in my room for 2 days. Didn't come out. He said he was going to make a change. He said, you're going to manage a club. After 2 days, he said, well, maybe it's better wait another week. He said, go to Baltimore. I sat in Baltimore for a week. And I run into Bertie Taylor, and he says, what are you doing here? What do you want to do here? I'm scouting the American League. He says, I got it through the grapevine. You're going to be managing that club within a week. He says, you're not kidding me, Charlie. I said, Bertie, I used to kid you when you were managing. I was scouting. Cut it out. But,
can't fool a baseball.
I come back and I managed for about 5 weeks, I guess. And he says, get down and find out what you really need. Well, I had only been out, a year. And I wanted to stay managing at that time. Well, The last day of the season, we're in Chicago, and I said, after church, I want to see you for breakfast. He says, okay, we get sitting at the table. He says, you're not going to be the manager. So I went like that. Oh, God, I would have managed bad, but it wasn't a bad club.
No, Carter coming up.
So he said, I tell you what I want you to do. He says, you have a great rapport with the players. I like the way you managed. He says, I'm going to be tied up in the process of getting the Olympic Stadium as our home grounds to play on, and a lot of numerous other things. Will you be the general manager for the years that I'm going to take you? I said, sure. General manager, I haven't tried that yet. I'll try. Right. Well, I went from 76 to 79, and then he'd come back, and of course, I didn't help myself by hitting my star pitcher. I know that story.
That never makes an impression.
No, that makes an impression,
but it makes you feel good.
I was in the clubhouse, and I'm yelling at Spire about something, which he had instigated. Now, I was talking to him and went behind a thing to get some coffee, and he made a remark, and I came out and started yelling at him. I said, what's the matter with you? You crazy? I'm trying to help you, and you make a remark like that. And Nick from Rogers over, and he says, I have to get out of this. He's got to be kidding. Go over, sit down, mind your own business. And about that time, his hand came and sort of pushed me, and I hit him. It was a natural instinct.
You were from New York?
Yeah, no. I trained in the service, but I never let the hand get. I let his hand get too far. But there was a big skirmish about that. But there was a lot of, and then when it came out, and we finally, Dick Young splashed it all over the paper. He says, they're saying an aging executive was. He says, that guy was attacked and somebody would have killed him if they let him go. He said they should. He was attacked, so what's the big to-do? And it settled down, needless to say. But I went back as John McHale. He came back, took the general manager's job as his assistant. And then all of a sudden, around 82, Dallas Green, who I knew and liked over at Philadelphia, was made the general. He was a year into the general manager and vice president of the Cubs.
Right.
And he said, he talked through the grapevine, he let it be known that he was interested in me. They gave him permission to talk to me, and I went over there. And I have to say one thing, that was probably the second most happiest years of my life in baseball. With the Cubs. It was such a great, it looked like it was just running perfect for me, with all those players, the Boston were brought over. You know, the players were coming, Palmero, Grace, and they were coming like, the scouts were signing them, and we made the deal, Dallas and I, for Joe Carter, went over to Cleveland, and Hall went with him, but he said, which pitcher? I said, Sutcliffe, and I'll get crazy. He said, oh, that's good. I said, fantastic. Oh, so, well, that's great. That's a good deal.
Right.
A lot of people are upset in the organization because Joe Carter, that's what now is. But it took him how many years to get into the World Series?
Three more organizations.
We should have won that World Series that year.
Yeah.
We won the first two in the playoff. Not win. I shouldn't say win the World Series. We should have been in the World Series. They beat us down in San Diego.
Who engineered the trade for Ivan De Jesus? Ivan De Jesus, I might be able to talk, for Ryan Sandberg and Larry Bowa.
Dallas Green.
Manager of my New York Mets. I say this periodically. It's not easy being a New York Mets fan, but I think they have a good man in Dallas.
Dallas Green is a good manager. He has a good rapport with people, but to me, he personifies the general manager. He can sit there and dissect my interpretation of a player and the other, a great super scout. Everyone knows Alexander.
Right. One arm.
Right. Yeah. Well, one hand. And a great scout. I mean, he was 20 years old when they made him a scout after losing his hand and being in the big leagues at Cleveland. And the first, Ali Reynolds, the first guy he signed him, I think $500. That's pretty good scouting at 20 years old. And Dallas would sit there and analyze it and say, what do you think? We go this way? Yes. No hem and haw. When I went over, and he said to me, Huey Alexander wasn't with us at the time. And I said, Buckley needs a change. Billy Buckley needs a change. He's not keen on overall picture for us and the people around him over in Chicago. If I'm going to Boston, I said, I think I could trade him over there. He needed first baseman. Well, we get over there, and we knocked it around 2 days. The second night, I said, I'm leaving. I'm going back. You either call tomorrow and say yes or no. I went, I could say. And I need somebody thrown in because I could see the pitcher only going to pitch every 4th day. And Buckley's going to win a pennant for it, which he did. They won a pennant. And he said, well, who do you want? I said, well, give me a pair. And I looked at his press guy, and I said, there, that little fellow there, Bromley. He said, he was number 1 draft pick. I said, 5'7"? You would give up a little fellow like that that hit 235 or something? I said, well, you're going to have to give me somebody. So I went back. And Dallas that's the time we had Fink come in as the president of the Cubs, the football man.
Right.
And he said, we thought you were mugged or something. We called the hotel you were gone. I said, I get up at 5 o'clock this morning, fly back. I said, 12 o'clock to pull away. Yes or no? He said, I'll make the deal. If I can sleep 4, Buckner, take it. If he gives you another guy, it's great, which he ded.
Yeah. What a career Eckersley has had. Tremendous.
He pitched very well for us, and I thought my wife died in '84, and that's when he was traded. And Dallas sent me all over the Caribbean with Scotty, the kid that we put a break in as a scout. And he kept me busy. I said, don't trade Eckersley. I said, I know you have problems. Maybe we better put him in a bullpen or something like that.
You thought of that?
No,
before LaRusso?
He threw great. He said, well, he says he won't do it. I said, you put him down in the bullpen and give him about 3 days, he'd go wacky, not being able to throw the ball. Not knowing he's not going to work. I said, he'll come and say, give me the ball. I'll pitch any way you want. Just let me pitch. Which he did. So.
Yeah. What's your biggest regret in baseball? What, if you had it to do all over again, what would you do differently?
The only thing that I think back on, and you should think back because everything happens for the best.
This interview notwithstanding.
This I would say that when Horace called me in the end of '74 and said, I think we should make a change. I said, who? He said, with you. He said, I'll bring you upstairs and I said, no, Horace, I'm going to manage. He said, he actually had Tom Sheen call me. And Tom says, he don't want to fire you. He wants you in the organization. I should have said no, fire me. Because Horace, after he lost the ball club, but in '75, the next year, told me that numerous clubs had called and asked could they have me as a manager. Before I became manager of the Giants, the Cubs, Boston Red Sox, and a few clubs asked. And I said, if I had a good edge then, managing. If I'd have stayed with it, I would have loved to get in the National League's bump heads with Tommy Lasorda again.
Right. Now, you knew Lasorda when he was coming up Montreal.
I
managed against him in the minors.
Coast League, sure.
Yeah. Tell me about the Coast League a little bit.
The Coast League at the time I was in it had some great ball players. Tommy had some great ones. I did. And it was finally, now that we rush players so fast, there's such a need. If a young pitcher has a great year in a decent A-League, they got to look at him. Say, leave him alone. They say, well, we can't leave him there. He won 10 in a row here at Des Moines. We're going to bring him to Jersey City. Why? Let him have a great year. He's all confident.
Right.
Now the next year, bring him to spring training with the AAA club, right? Now you're looking around and you say, wow, a lot of the milk is gone. It's all cream here. Just waiting to be whipped up there.
Right.
There's the difference. That's the terminology I use. When he went to spring training, he was the cream of the town he was in. And little town. He gets down, he says, well, the rest of it's all cream too, and all the milk is being sent home. All of a sudden he has to rev it up a little more if he wants to succeed. It's
like Yogi said, it's 90% mental. It's in your head.
That's right. It's in your head.
Right.
The dedication it has to be the football has the work ethic part of the man that I like. Mm-hmm. Because Mays, when he was young, in the Polo Grounds, people would come out to watch him in pre-game practice. While they were taking batting practice, he would get from second base, he'd go out about, say, 30 yards, all right? Behind second base. And be there like that, and they'd hit a ball, and he'd turn, and that's why he loved that big field. Right. He'd run, and he made the catches. People would go wild. Over his head in batting practice.
Right. Now, that juices up a team.
Oh, sure. Then when he took batting practice, every day that I managed the ball club, and we opened spring training, no one could wait until the two Willies got to the plate.
McCovey and what other combination? Thank you, sir. Okay. This is wonderful.
It was really great.
All right.
Good luck to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Fox, 50 years in baseball, and just a great guy.
Whoa, that was Charlie Fox. And I want to end the segment the way I do everyone. I implore y'all to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, keep your kids out of military recruiting stations, and off the laps of clerics. And you have been comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man.